Hey there. Today, for the purpose of this video, I will be going over RabbitMQ, a library that can be used in many programming languages. My name is Grant Pennington. I'm a computer science student at Florida State University. And without further ado, let's get into what is RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is a multi-protocol messaging server, and formerly it was an advanced messaging queuing protocol. RabbitMQ was developed in Erlang and OTP framework. It's an open source and it's also available for free. It's used by some big name companies, just Facebook for the iOS chat application, and it's also used in Instagram for direct messaging. What languages can use RabbitMQ? I said there were several of them, and there are. Java can use it. COBOL, PHP, Erlang, Python, Haskell, Ruby, and Node JavaScript. Alright, going into the basic components. Whenever you're using, or whenever you need to send a message to something, to someone, maybe to yourself and other users, RabbitMQ requires you to have a producer, a consumer, a message, obviously, the exchange, which will tell you who the message will be sent to, and the queue, the binding key, and the routing key. And let's go into each of these and figure out what each of these are. So the producer or the publisher will have a message to send, and the message gets sent to the exchange. The exchange will decide who it will be sent to. The producer creates a routing key for the message. And then we have a consumer, and a consumer has a queue, and it consumes from that queue each of the messages. Once the message is taken, it'll be taken out of the queue as well. And each of these queues has a binding key. The consumer consumes the message from the queue, and the consumer acknowledges the message, and the message is then removed from the queue. Routing and binding keys are necessary whenever you need to send a message to a specific person. Routing keys are defined by the publisher and the producer, while binding keys are used to bind the consumer to their queue. Words in the routing key and binding key are separated by periods. Routing and binding keys are used to discern which message is sent to which consumer. And then we have the exchange. The exchange manages which message is sent to the queue, like I said earlier, to which queue precisely. And it uses the binding key from the producer and the publisher, and then the producer-publisher will be able to send a message to the exchange, but it never goes directly to the queue. It's up to the exchange to discern which queue the message will be sent to. There are several methods, several exchange methods, which we'll get to momentarily. Alright, now that we understand the basic components of RabbitMQ, all the required components that go into sending a message, we need to talk about how the message is chosen to send to which queue or which consumer. So these are the exchange methods that we're going to talk about today. The first one is the default exchange. It's also known as a nameless exchange. Then there's the fan-out exchange, the direct exchange, and the topic exchange. The direct and the topic exchange are similar, and we'll go into that in a little bit. So going on, the first one we're going to talk about is the fan-out exchange. The fan-out exchange is generally going to be an announcement. The producer or publisher wants to send a message to multiple consumers, and the routing key as well as the binding key are ignored. So if there's a consumer, then the message is sent to them. Each individual consumer is able to consume that message. And here's a little diagram that shows how it works. The producer sends the message to the exchange, then the exchange decides, well, for the fanout exchange, it just sends out to each of the queues. At that point, the message is inside of the queue, and it'll be popped out, and the consumer will receive it. And going into the direct exchange is used when the producer or publisher wants to send a message to a specific or single consumer. The producer/publisher provides a routing key for the exchange, and each of the consumers have their own binding key. If the routing key from the producer/publisher matches a binding key from a consumer, then the message is sent to them. The exchange places the message into the matching consumer's queue, and if the routing key does not match any of the binding keys, then the message is not sent. So as we say right here, if the binding key matches the routing key, that consumer will get the message. And this is a little example of that. So if the producer sends a message to the direct exchange, you can see that each of these queues have their key. So if the routing key matches Big Bang Theory, then this consumer will receive that. And now we're going to talk about the difference between topic exchange and direct exchange. Direct exchange was to a specific user. The topic exchange, on the other hand, you see here it says you can use wildcards. So this is used when the producer or publisher wants to send a message to specific consumers, plural, several consumers. While direct exchange will just go straight to one user. So many of you, if you're watching this video, are maybe familiar, may not be familiar with wildcards. So the first one we have is the asterisk. Asterisk will match one or more words in the routing key. Similar to wildcards in other languages, but this one, it matches multiple words instead of all. The number sign, the pound symbol, will match 0 or more words in a routing key. So the difference between that is that the pound sign will match 0 or more, but with the asterisk it requires at least 1. So python.star would match python.all, but it wouldn't match Python. So if we did python.pound, then it would also match the Python there. Going into the topic exchange for the diagram here, you can see that the producer will send a message to the exchange just like normal, and if the message we wanted to send had TV dot pound, you can see right here, then the message would get sent to all 3 of these consumers, which is very useful because then each of these consumers can take that. And the default exchange. The default exchange is also known as the nameless exchange, and we'll see why. That's because the binding key from the consumer queue is ignored. Instead, the routing key from the producer and publisher matches the queue name that the consumer has, and the message is sent to that queue. So if the routing key is equal to the queue name, then the message gets sent. So if we look at this diagram, the producer will send the message to the default exchange, and there will be an automatic binding between the queue and the key, because it'll just match the name. Alright, now before I show a quick demo on how to use RabbitMQ, I'm going to show you this website. This is where you get it at. It's www.rabbitmq.com/download.html. It's available for Linux, Windows, Mac, and there's a lot of other platforms you can have it on too. Anyways, route to this website first, get to download. When you try to download, it's actually going to, if you don't already have Erlang, then you need to download Erlang. So Erlang is just a general purpose programming language and runtime environment. And as I said in the slides, that's the framework, the OTP framework, and Erlang is what RabbitMQ is created in. So if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to use it. Now the last maintenance or setup things that we need to do is just pip3 install RabbitMQ, and I already have it, and then pip3 install Pika, which is the library inside of RabbitMQ that we're going to use. And like I said originally, there's two files that go into this. So we're going to do a producer and we will do a consumer. Okay, and this is Visual Studio Code if anyone was curious about the IDE that I've chosen to use. And we'll go ahead and just do a quick setup here. You want to do this on all your files, and that's going to actually be a hash bang, not a 1. And we will import Pika over here as well. Now for the producer, we need to create a connection and a channel. So the first thing we need to do is create that connection, and for this purpose of the video, we're going to just use a local host. So let's go ahead and do that. So Pika.connection parameters, we're going to set this to be localhost. And if you are going to be doing this on a web application or anything like that, you're going to have to set it up a little bit different. Usually put the IP address there. So once we have our connection, we use the connection to create a channel. So the channel is going to be just like that. It's quick and easy. And we need to give a name to it, to the queue that we're going to use, because we're going to do nameless. There we go. And let's go ahead and set up the exchange because we're doing nameless. Basic publish, I believe it is here. And exchange equals just nameless. And the routing key is going to be equal to hello. And this is where you put in the body. What message I'm going to send? Hello world. And it's good practice right here. You want to go ahead and close the channel whenever you open one. And something we did forget over here was queue declare. So that should get rid of that error right there. Go ahead and save the file. Alright, now that we have that all set up, we can go ahead and start working on our consumer. So we will take the channel and the connection. We're going to use the same local host and we're going to use the same channel. It's good to declare these because you don't know which file will be ran first. So now we need the callback. We need to create the callback. This is just going to let us see when we received a message. So we'll take the channel, the method, the properties, and the body, and we will print out a message, which will be the callback. received this message at this body. And then we're going to set up our consumer. And we want to make sure that whenever we receive a message, that we're gonna ACK it, so we just do auto ACK equals true. And we want to print one more thing, and that is that we are waiting for messages. And we'll give them the way to exit. So we'll tell them Control C. And then we'll go ahead and start consuming. Okay. And then we've got a problem. Looks like, oh, I believe I'm just missing a comma. Alright, actually here's the error. We need a comma right there. Alright, so now that we've got everything set up, we can go ahead, clear out the terminal. We can test it out. So I'm going to say Python 3. Actually, my computer, the path has it as Python. So I'll use Python, and then I'm going to call the producer. And I will call the consumer. And if you see right there, the connection was created, and then just like that, we have our message received. And that's going to be it. Clearly there's the other exchange methods. I just wanted to show you a little bit of the coding behind the scenes here. Show you how they're doing it on Facebook and Instagram. This is how you send a message. But you can do other exchanges. As you can see right here, we used the nameless exchange, and we matched the hello key with the name of the queue. Instead of using a binding key, we used the nameless exchange. And thank you for watching, everyone. This concludes my demo and my tutorial for RabbitMQ. I hope you enjoyed it.